Hello, welcome to Unit 6. This is the start of 6.01. It's a Small World 1, and we're starting with slide number 1. Not long ago, the world felt like a much bigger place. People rarely ventured far from where they were born, and they knew relatively little about other places. It took months or even years to transport goods and people to different places, and the journeys were often treacherous or fatal. Today, thanks to transportation and communication technologies, the world is a much smaller place. People and products can be flown to the other side of the world in less than a day, and modern communications technology allows information and money to be transported around the globe instantly. This adds up to a greater level of interconnectedness than ever before. The process driving this shrinking of the world is often called globalization. Globalization refers to the increased mobility of goods, services, labor, technology, and investment capital throughout the world. Globalization isn't new. It has been taking place since explorers first set out for places that their people had never seen. However, the pace of globalization has greatly accelerated in recent years. Each person has a unique set of skills, attributes, and experiences that enables him or her to perform certain tasks better than others. We often call this set of distinct skills a specialty. When one focuses on those skills, it is an act of specialization. In the world of economics, specialization means that everybody performs a special function and provides their particular skills in the economy. In the age of globalization, there are countless jobs that are interrelated in important ways. If we all had the same qualities and performed the same functions, production would not be very efficient and the economy would not function very well. When people specialize, they become experts in producing a particular good or performing a particular service. The division of labor. Specialization can take place only because of the division of labor. You have already learned about the division of labor in action, but here is a brief review. When labor is divided, large tasks are separated into a number of smaller tasks. Instead of creating a product from beginning to end, each worker in a group of workers focuses on one or a few small tasks in which they develop expertise or a specialty. In this way, products are created from the combined work of a large group of workers, each doing small tasks. The division of labor is not without its problems. Performing a small task can be boring and repetitious, and technological advancements can reduce or eliminate the demand for skilled labor, causing unemployment for people whose technical skills are no longer in demand. Disadvantages aside, the division of labor boosts labor productivity by making production more efficient and workers better at their tasks. Specialization encourages efficiency and economic growth. Special countries. Just like people have specialties, so do entire countries. Every country has its own particular traits, such as climate, geography, natural resources, and developed infrastructure. That means each country's economy is suited to perform specialized functions within the global division of labor. For example, Canada has large forests, so the production of lumber, paper, and pulp products is a good specialty for Canadian producers. China has the largest population on Earth, which makes it well suited for performing labor-intensive activities. And the 11 countries of OPEC, Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, all possess large oil reserves, so they specialize in producing oil. No country today fulfills all of its economic needs on its own. Each country specializes in certain goods and services and buys the rest of what it needs from other countries. Specialization in the global economy. When countries specialize in producing goods and services, the entire world is able to be more productive. As this happens, more goods and services flow throughout the world, the global economy grows, and living standards rise around the world. But specialization on a global scale depends on international trade, particularly on the openness of international trade. The more protectionist policies and trade barriers there are, the more countries are discouraged from specializing. On the other hand, The more open and widespread free trade is, the more countries will tend to specialize, and the greater the global benefits will be. Absolute advantage. There are definite economic advantages when countries specialize, but how does a country decide what to produce and what to import? It makes sense for a country to specialize in the production of goods or services in which it has advantages. A country's unique features help determine those advantages in trade, but advantages are also determined by levels of efficiency in production. The simplest type of advantage is absolute advantage. If country A can produce grapes at a lower cost than country B, then country A has an absolute advantage over country B in the production of grapes. Absolute advantage means that the country with the advantage will be able to bring cheaper goods to the market. In this example, country A's grapes will always undersell those of country B. But if country B can produce soybeans at a lower cost than country A, then country B has an absolute advantage in producing those. This is a situation in which international trade can take place. Country A specializes in grapes, consuming some domestically and exporting the rest, while country B specializes in soybeans, consuming some domestically and exporting its surpluses. Consumers in both countries get the lowest prices possible on both products, and everybody wins. Comparative advantage. Should countries with an absolute advantage in the production of a good produce that good rather than import it? The answer might surprise you. Not always. Even when a country has an absolute advantage in producing some good or service, it can still benefit from importing that product instead of making it. That is because of comparative advantage, which exists when one producer has a lower opportunity cost than a competitor. A producer can have an absolute advantage in the production of a good without having a comparative advantage if another producer can make the same good with a lower opportunity cost. Watch the slideshow to see how comparative advantage works in a hypothetical situation. Comparative advantage and international trade. The theory of comparative advantage explains that the most efficient division of labor is based not simply on efficiency of production, but on minimizing opportunity costs. This helps explain why countries chose to specialize in producing certain products and not others. It also shows why countries don't produce products they could make themselves, relying on imports instead. When a nation has a comparative advantage in producing a particular good, it is most efficient to focus on that type of production and then trade with other producers for other goods. That's true even when that country could produce those other goods itself. For example, if a country could produce both cars and farm machinery efficiently, but farm machinery production is the more efficient of the two, then the country might want to produce farm machinery exclusively and import cars. The extra income earned from producing and exporting farm machinery would more than make up for the extra cost of importing cars. Comparative advantage and international trade. Here's another way to think of comparative advantage. If you had two part-time jobs, one paying $10 an hour and the other paying $8 an hour, which job would you prefer to quit if they both offered you the chance to become full-time? Obviously, you'd rather work full-time at the job that pays more. That's because it has a comparative advantage over the other job. Production works the same way. Countries prefer to focus on producing goods that enable them to earn more, just as you would prefer to focus on a job that pays a higher wage. Because of comparative advantage, different countries can specialize and take part in global trade at the lowest opportunity cost possible. The division of labor and specialization based on comparative advantage raises the efficiency and productivity of producers, increasing overall wealth. In reality, though, international trade is rarely based solely on comparative advantage. Trade restrictions interfere with free trade, creating inefficiency in the global economy. Plus, unequal power between countries distorts trading relationships. A country would only decide to import cars if there were no major barriers on the trade of cars. If there were barriers, it might be too costly to import cars. This would make it more cost effective to produce the cars domestically. Still, the principle of comparative advantage shows why it is more advantageous for a country to participate in international trade than attempt to become economically self-sufficient. To your advantage. Specialization, absolute advantage, and comparative advantage are important economic concepts. Make sure you understand each of these concepts before moving on. All right, we're going to end this recording here. We will pick up on slide 14. As always, let me know if you have any questions.